as Claire said at her talk, that she says like, okay, I always tell my students that your life's going to change, and I'm now sitting here after all I've been going through. I'm okay, yeah, it did
change. Yeah.
So, and one of the ideas of this talk, maybe it's like to give a sense to those who are looking into the world of existential approach, whether it's like a trainee, a path of becoming a therapist, or like for their own sake to get a sense what it is like. And I was wondering, like, your person, what drew you into the existential therapy of this world when you were like many years ago?
Youth, my 20s. Yeah, that's a great question. So, for me, I've long been fascinated by life, just life. It really goes back to my early childhood when I dealt with a very big trauma, loss of my brother.
Yeah.
I was about 3 years old, and he was 7. And it was like a 10-month-long process. He eventually died of several diseases. And this just, as you can imagine, turned the whole family situation upside down. I came into a very different life after he died in comparison to before, where things were relatively calm and familiar, and then suddenly, parents completely destroyed in many ways, or devastated, absent, understandably, sometimes physically, emotionally. And I struggled greatly with such a change. But I had the very good fortune of having parents who were psychologically minded. My father was a teacher, and he identified a lot with great humanistic psychologists, actually. So I was almost born into this field because I was surrounded by books by Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow and Eric Fromm.
Yeah.
And my mother was a radio and television spokeswoman at a very challenging time for women.
Right.
But she also was very, very insightful. And she went to a psychoanalyst, actually, to deal with the loss of her son.
Yeah.
And she had him refer an analyst to me when I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
So I've been steeped in this field for a long time, and steeped in huge questions about life and death, disease, fears that I might be killed, or that I had something to do with the death of my brother. Just my point is, the big questions about life happened very early for me. And so I feel like I missed my midlife crisis because I had it when I was 3.
Yeah. And you didn't ask for that, so it just happened.
Just happened.
This one of the main existential ideas that we have been
thrown into such radical unknown.
Yeah.
The unknowns. That's been something I've lived with for a long time. What do I do? Where do I go? How do I manage with this overwhelming existence? These overwhelming fears of what's going to happen. The unpredictable. And that analysis that I had as a kid, I don't remember much about it, but what I do remember was how present this middle-aged man was with me. I don't even remember playing games. We often with kids play games. I think it was a lot of him sitting with me and holding me, and I mean psychologically. staying with my emotional turmoil and asking questions, maybe occasionally asking questions of why you feel this way.
Yeah.
What happened. It helped me to, I think, to develop more of a kind of centeredness in the storm, if you know what I mean. More of a balance, because I was in very bad shape. I mean, I had night terrors and nightmares and monsters and witches invading. My father was actually taking notes on me because it was like going into another world.
Yeah.
And what came out of that early experience with the analyst and my parents eventually, as they got themselves together, was a greater and greater ability to work with the terror that I was feeling. Yeah. And not only work with it or live with it more, but to actually see some interesting possibilities in this new world that had ripped open.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the way that manifested was through science fiction. Yeah. Loving, especially the television programs. And we had Outer Limits and One Step Beyond, the paranormal, and Twilight Zone. I mean, these were great science fiction shows. And I identified so much with strange characters and different planets and experiments and the curiosity of it all. You know? So that was such a great thing to be able to come into a more curious mode rather than being so terrified and overwhelmed.
It is a kind of, and from that I think the other question is the second one, like if you would describe the spirit or the essence of the existential approach, I think it's a good prelude, like what you were saying before. Like,
yeah, well, the spirit of the existential approach is to take on the big questions of life. You know, what deeply matters about our time and space?
Right.
You know, this flash between two voids. Really, the unknown of where we came from and where we're going.
Yeah.
So opening up huge questions, and I feel like I'm almost a natural existentialist in that way. But in terms of how I've conceived it theoretically, if you're interested in that, is that it revolves around two basic questions. How are you presently living? So taking the chance, clearing the space to really look inside, to pause. Pause is so important. We so often, fly by things in this life, in this culture that many of us are in, so fast-paced. So existential psychology therapy gives people a chance and encourages people to take some time, to take a breath, and to not just think about their situation, but feel into it, with their whole body experience. So taking time to be aware of one's thoughts, but especially feelings, body sensations, images that come up, to stay with that, to get a sense of what's operating on you. That's, I believe, the first stage for many in existential therapy is getting a sense, and not just intellectually or behaviorally, but what's operating with your whole body experience of a given problem. And from there, the question of, okay, that's where you're at. You're scared over here, or you're feeling like you can't take a step toward someone or something that calls you, that you have a great desire to engage with. okay, so now the next question is, what are you going to do about it?
Right. Yes.
How are you willing to live?
Yeah. It's
So
all
how
here,
are,
but
yes.
what's now?
How are you presently living? A check-in. And now, how are you willing to live?
Yeah.
And so this is sort of the freedom and responsibility aspects of existential philosophy
Yeah.
that's so important in our lineage of, really tapping into our inner freedom to explore, to stay present to these various sides of ourselves, and our battle, usually a battle between the part that's trying to break through and liberate ourselves and the part that's holding us back and pushing us into the safe and familiar but often miserable life. And then the call to respond to that. How do you not just react in like a knee-jerk way, but how do we mindfully and heartfully respond to where we're at?
Yeah. I think it already answered I had this question, how the way you work, and then I suppose you already kind of explained and describe how it probably happens in the room and in the space with someone, right?
Yes.
And I was wondering, how do you think the approach, the existential therapy or the perspective changes a person professionally and personally? If it does.
Well, for me, it made profound changes.
Yeah.
Because after the psychoanalyst I had as a young child, perhaps my most important therapy was when I was in graduate school, and some of my early trauma was reactivated for a number of circumstances. I was very isolated, very far from home, very young, and I went through some serious panic attacks. And I had a great existential psychotherapist, also an analyst, existential, meeting me in the here and now, and really meeting me. This was a woman, the other was a man. And again, it was presence. Came back to presence. She helped me to stay with whatever came up between us and in my life in between sessions. Really encouraged me to practice. As scared as I was, as paralyzed as I might be in moments, go with it as far as you can. And if it's too much, bring it back to us. We'll connect again and work with you. So such safety that she provided, and that vital skill of presence. To me, that is the grounding and the aim, really, of this perspective. And the greatest gift, perhaps the greatest gift one could have, is to be able to be present to one's whole body experience of living. And so that helped me professionally tremendously, because it enabled me to, well, first of all, part of my panic was one of my revered professors gently challenged me to work at a local mental hospital. And it terrified me because I think it activated my own sense of craziness. So I was able to work at a state hospital, which is the belly of the beast. Yes, old-fashioned in Ohio, in the country, next to a mausoleum.
I can imagine some movie scene.
It's something like High Anxiety by Mel Brooks. I mean, that old-fashioned spires and very old hospital. I could hear the screams when I pulled up in the parking lot and the wards.
The whole bundle.
Whole bundle. But that was a very important experience for me, because a lot had to do with my own stuff that got stirred up of terrors of groundlessness and helplessness, very primal fears. That my therapist helped me to develop skills to work with that, to stay with it, and to see that what looked like a horror and an overwhelm at first may not be that at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes it got scary,
Of
very
course,
scary.
but
But
the capacity is...
capacity grew
Right.
much more. So I was able to be with the patients
Yeah.
in a much more person-to-person way,
Yeah.
because I could tolerate what's coming up for me as they
Yeah.
were in their, you could say, craziness, but
Sure.
there's usually a logic to this craziness.
Yeah.
Many of these people have been profoundly abused
Mm.
and in extreme situations.
Yeah.
So that was important professionally. Also helped me to lose my fear, much of my fear in public speaking.
Yeah.
I just decided, why am I afraid?
Yeah.
I've been in such places that this is not something to be so thrown over about.
Yeah.
And in fact, I almost developed an anger. Why am I feeling so lowly with this crowd of people
Yeah.
or teaching students
Yeah.
when I'm here trying to offer something
Right.
to them in a conversation?
Yeah. And with that, you're coming, the presence, like
Presence.
you're coming back to the now, where
Yes.
you're facing these people and thinking,
Yes.
okay, but now I'm okay.
Yes. Why
I
do
can deal with that. Yeah.
Right, and why do I need to be so identified with something wrong with me?
Yeah.
You know, I'm bad or I'm unworthy, or all these narrow places that we get into
Yeah.
that don't take in the more of
Right.
who we are. And so I was able to take in the more of the situation and realize all these great things about it too.
Yeah.
You know, it's exciting. We're learning new
Yeah.
things together. I'm imparting something that may be helpful to them, or exciting even for
Yeah.
them. We're exploring questions. So I saw a lot more.
Yeah.
Something like being in a dark basement.
Yeah.
At first, your eyes have not adjusted at all, and you're
Yeah.
terrified things are poking at you, or you might run into something scary. But as you can stay with it, you know, your eyes slowly
Yeah.
begin to
You
adjust.
get used to it. You're
And
becoming comfortable.
More
in a way.
comfort, skills. You've developed more
Yeah.
skills to see other possibilities. So professionally, for sure, and it's lasted for, I had that therapy when I was about 22. I'm now almost 69.
Mm.
So I don't know, what is that, 47 years? It's
Mm-hmm.
really helped me through a lot. And personally, it's almost hard to have words. I think it's enabled me to have a relationship, you know, very close relationship with my wife, opening to someone of a very different culture, different religious backgrounds as well. We took time, thankfully she also is very mindful, took time to be in therapy together to try to work with some of these issues that we didn't even see at the beginning. But when you're in therapy, you realize there's a lot of baggage you bring in.
Notice.
Yes. And I feel it was freeing in a lot of ways. You know, having a family, and now I have a 30-year-old son who's thriving, thankfully, as a journalist and a writer. Going on adventures too, you know, with my son. I really tried to expose him to the mud and the rain and the ocean.
Right.
We went skiing, we went body surfing together for years since he was small. Because I had a feeling that this whole AI and high-tech world was going to close in more and more.
It does,
his generation. It's much worse than his generation now, I think, much more difficult. So I like to think that a lot of that came out of the encouragement for me to be more open to adventure, to some risk-taking, to feeling of the land, of the sea, and you know,
the natural,
physical
tangible,
contact, tangible movement and contact.
And I think what's important is like showing your own example, not like, describing and saying, oh, you should do this and that. Sometimes, we as parents do that, but you're just standing up and say, okay, follow me, right? So
much more that way.
Look at me, yeah.
What we realize in the research too is that kids pay very little attention to what parents say.
Yeah.
What they do is a big difference. It's, they watch
not the words, but the action.
Absolutely.
I think, like, speaking about an example and for the upcoming generation, what insights, maybe advice or anything, recommendation for those who are starting maybe this journey of becoming a therapist or interested in the existential ideas?
Well, first of all, basing it directly on my own experience is some form of in-depth, person-to-person, here and now oriented therapy.
Okay.
Experiential therapy, in other words, therapy that really tries to meet you in the moment, in the relationship,
right?
Relational, tensions or possibilities. Having a therapist who is willing to go there and willing to work with how you are with them and vice versa. And working with issues could well be from the past, profoundly from the past, but how they come out in the present. So a lot of the work that I do and that I did as a client was to become aware of what I'm feeling, sensing, imaging in the moment. So we call attention to not just what we're saying or what the patient's reporting, but how they're sitting, perhaps, or what the expression is on their face, or noticing vocal fluctuations. I notice you got a lot quieter right there. I wonder if you felt that, Max. Or the therapist sharing their own experience. I just felt something in my gut when you said that, Max. These can be very powerful gateways to getting to the deeper primal, I emphasize primal wounds. Because I do believe these wounds go back. I'm a big believer in much of Otto Rank's work about trauma of birth. I don't call it just trauma, I call it drama of birth because I believe that the initial shock and terror often leads to a curiosity that comes along soon after. So our primal abilities are both the terror and overwhelm and sense of wonder. But my point is, and what Rank, I think, beautifully pointed out, is how deep this wound, in a way, is for all of us. We don't pay enough attention to it. It's the wound of shifting from relative non-being and unity with the mother and with the cosmic background we come out of, to sudden, abrupt being and pandemonium. He calls it a psychology of difference. How do we deal with difference? That which is other, foreign, radically unknown. And I feel like that sense of helplessness and groundlessness is very connected with that. Until we develop the skills to work with it. And that's what I think good depth therapy does.
So basically, if I frame it like this recommendation and advice is just to get an experience by yourself first, like to go through either personal therapy or some other encounters, but to get a sense of this meeting and then being with somebody, this relatedness.
Especially with a therapist who is skilled at relating. is skilled at tuning into not just the words that are exchanged,
Right.
but the whole body energy, whole body experience, who can help a person to stay with the process, not just the content. In other words, again, how they're holding themselves as they say this or that, how they're expressing themselves. See, my point here is that at a certain point, as we go deeper into our struggle, words and categories no longer can meet us. Yeah. Interpretations often fall short because we're too much in our heads at that point. And these are wounds that are so deep that they can't be talked about or reported about. They have to be felt. So being with a therapist who can support one in one's feeling, in one's embodiment of the problem, is really important. You think about what happens when I have been in those places, it's a sense of drowning, being in a black hole. The bottom has dropped out. I mean, these metaphors are more descriptive than, well, your father was this way and mother was this way, and therefore you're this way, and you explain that. I think that can be helpful for some people at some points of therapy, but for many people to really heal in a fundamental way has to go beyond explanation and interpretation, and much more of a being with.
Yeah, it takes you as a whole.
Yes.
You should be there kind of with all the everything there is.
Yes.
Not just the intellect or the words.
Right. You learn the skill of being with oneself. You're internalizing the model that therapist is presenting for you. The model of staying with wherever you're going as much as you can. And you practice that enough, you deepen that enough, then you come into your whole body experience much more than you would have.
If we get into more in a wider kind of taking wider perspective, maybe an existential approach, does it have something meaningful to offer to a kind of wider public or maybe to the world now? Especially if we see like the age we are in, like the anxiety, uncertainty, all the climate issues, conflicts, polarities, like the bizarre situation of our
This
age.
is precisely what I'm working on of late. I mean, it's my book, Life Enhancing Anxiety, is really about this question of how do we bring the riches of existential psychology to the greater world, to everyday people, everyday life, to the degree we can. I would say that we have so much anxiety and despair in the world precisely because we don't confront the potentially constructive primal anxiety that I would say most, if not all of us experience. We're not very good at addressing our inner lives and giving each other the skills to work from very early ages with this primal terror of the other and the unknown. And so in the book, I'm calling for much more supportive and understanding approaches on the part of parents, the culture as a whole, having many more spaces where people feel met. Our platform for a movement that I've started with a graduate student called the Core of Depth Healers, which is bringing together people in the helping professions who are concerned about deeper healing
So it's beyond just a psychotherapist, so it's a
bringing,
wider
encouraging,
community.
yes, encouraging a wider community of healers to be available for what we call emotionally restorative relationships. Those are relationships where people feel heard and seen, and that get at the roots of their problems. And this is in many areas of our lives. I mean, everything from child rearing and family to longer term, in-depth relational therapy, especially for underserved youth and underserved communities, to providing bridge building dialogues between people who come from very different cultural or political backgrounds. I've been particularly involved in that with a one-on-one dialogue approach I call experiential democracy dialogue. These are all ways of helping people to be more present to themselves, and as a result, present to each other, because it really starts with the self and ability to, again, stay with uncomfortable ideas, uncomfortable feelings, so that you have much more range to work with that and to provide a space for the other to express, their difficult feelings. And what we find in those kinds of relationships is that people can come into, at least take steps toward feeling more whole and less reactive when it comes to whatever it is that, sense that they have to grab their phone right away and find out about the latest style or what their friend posted, or, these addictions that we have. Quick fix, instant result model. Running around. But to come much more from a place of responding versus reacting. Being able to pause, being able to be more present, can help in so many ways. And again, we're talking about at the educational system level, helping students to develop these skills. In medicine, where there's much more bedside manner and a relational approach in nursing and physician care, mentoring, life coaching, social work, even environmental work, I think, where people can appreciate nature more, and hopefully all these things lead to what I would call more sane policies for our world, where people, of course, deal with the messiness of life, and that's part of living in a freer, more democratic system. It's a mess. But can you live with the mess? Can you grow from the mess? Can you evolve? Learn from each other more than just be overwhelmed?
When you mentioned democracy, but for me it's like more, for what you were saying, it's more like a humane thing, like the people, and more about the connection, because sometimes we address, like we are with someone, but we are not. And all these areas you mentioned, it's like just, there is a person there, but we sometimes see through them, but not them, like, and maybe this one is the core kind of, like, to sort of detachment that we are all experiencing now, but to attach again and to see each other more, and to have, you were mentioning, to have this space, like where we can just slow down, here, to have this dialogue, or at least to try to, rather than escaping the room and,
Yes, like us right now. And in this space, this is a beautiful space. That we have no distraction, no interference. And this is what we promote also in bridge building dialogues. It's giving people a chance to know each other more as human beings, rather than labels or stereotypes. which our world is filled with.
It is. And unfortunately, yeah, it's such a great space, but one of the givens is the time, right? So we should be mindful of that.
And it's hard for me to keep track
yeah,
of it
but
when I'm in the
it's
space.
yeah. And kind of to conclude, maybe, if the world could stay with just one existential question right now, what it would be?
Well, I want to
What
emphasize.
should be?
I want to emphasize how important it is for these emotionally restorative relationships to be much more affordable and accessible. So this is how it relates to the socioeconomic system. I think we need leadership now that is much more aware of how destructive ignorance of our inner lives are. And therefore supports places and groups in our society that provide for emotionally restorative relationships, to address the emotionally impoverished relationships that we are increasingly involved in, partly by AI and high tech as well. So it's not just the socioeconomic system, which presses people to be hyper competitive and quick and just looks at the surfaces of things, but also our high tech gives us instant answers, results, etc. The more we move into that age, quick fix, instant result, I think the more danger we have of becoming like machines and losing perhaps the most important quality of being human, which is capacity to be deeply moved. I call it a sense of awe toward living. A sense of humility and wonder or adventure of living that one feels in one's whole body. So it's an attitude that one can have at any moment, virtually at any moment. It's harder in some moments than others, of course. But people like Viktor Frankl have shown that you do have quite a range of possibilities of inner freedom to experience the amazement of this time and space that we've been granted.
Like Casey was saying about this space in between stimulus and
Flash
reaction, right? Where you can decide, where you can, like, it's something we're missing now, maybe, like speeding up and trying quickly to resolve. Fix, right? Rather than staying in between and to allow ourselves to spend some time there.
The pause between stimulus and response, so to speak, stimulus and reaction. That pause is critical. So, if you ask what is the most important task for society today, I would say stop rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Where you're making things look pretty on the outside, or you give people, instructions of how to be better people together. I'm not saying that that's all bad. That can be helpful. Or how we can, have an efficiently run society. Of course, there's value to all of that. But we need to pay much more attention to uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable ideas, uncomfortable relationships. Much more attention to helping people to work with differences in themselves and between themselves and other people, to step out of our silos, to meet each other, and to have spaces and groups that encourage that. That again, I guess I come back to moving toward more of a depth dimension, a deeper relationship to ourselves and to others, so that we have much greater capacity to live with ourselves and to live with others, and not only to live with each other and tolerate each other, but to actually maybe be curious, more curious about each other, and to learn from each other, to evolve much more that way. And also, I think moral and ethical decisions are much more sound if they come from that larger space, larger pause, of the willingness to look at all possible sides of a situation or a dilemma, and from there make the decision, or the leap, as Kierkegaard would say, the leap of faith, because it's always a risk. But I'd say we're much better off if we take that leap, not from just a knee-jerk reaction, because that's what our parents said, that's what the culture said, that's what the religion says, that's what the ideology says, but it's because we have really worked with what deeply matters in ourselves. And we come together as best we can to then proceed from there.
Well, I think it's a great kind of place to stop with that idea that it's kind of coming from this deeper kind of, and I think well experienced place rather than immediate kind of response, which sometimes we should, because if there's life-threatening situation or anything,
absolutely,
we should react.
I want to be clear
fight
that
and flight and so on, but
if it's an emergency situation, all bets are off. These kinds of reflective, more deliberative ways of living won't work. And this is why it's a race against time, because I fear that there could become a time where there's a point of no return, where we won't be able to have these kinds of spaces for free inquiry and engagement, because people will not have learned the skills for that, and they'll just be this clashing, or they'll turn us into machines, basically, where everything is peaceful, but you've lost the soul, so to speak, of living.
Or you change the nature, kind of.
Change the nature of the person.
Like you're going to operate only on those high round per minute, kind of on this sympathetic nervous system will be like running all the time, but you won't kind of go down and slow down. It will be just excluded. You will be always running, executing, and that's it, constantly with those distraction and so on.
Yes, I think you will lose the sense of enrichment of living, or fulfillment of living, that comes from being able to be connected with your vulnerable, fragile side, as well as your bold and adventuresome side. That's a whole life. That's a vital life. Vital, I think it's so important. Vitality to really live.
Well, thank you so much for
thank you.
sharing.
I got into it so much that I lost track of time.
It's okay with you.